We're gonna go ahead and get started so we can get you in and out on time.
Do you
We
have a
actually,
sign-up sheet?
Ronnie will send it around, sign sheet.
Okay.
I've got, I do have, I just started at one of the, if you have some people sign it as they've come in,
Yeah, some of
Yeah.
them were signing it.
go ahead and pass it around. I do have video, safety video. Actually, I have 4 of them. We're only gonna probably get to watch one, but I've got 2 here. So I'll try to make sure to leave enough time to watch that this time. Speaking of the video, those people that miss, so if you miss in the future, you no longer are going to have to come to my office and pick up a video. I am working with Cammie McAndrew from the tech department who runs our website. We purchased an iPad mini just for transportation meetings. We're going to video, so the quality of the video should be pretty good. And we're going to upload it onto the website, and you'll be able to click on it, watch the entire thing at your computer, wherever you're at, without having to insert the CD and make that thing run and work. So that's a good thing. You will be required, and we haven't put a form together, but you're going to be required to document a form that says that you watched it. There may be a couple of questions just on what was covered, so we can document to the auditors that you actually did it and you didn't just say you did. So we're trying to work out all the logistics, but I think it's going to end up being a better process than what we've had, and hopefully some of you are pretty good at trying to be faithful and come in and get it. Sometimes the CD hasn't worked. Sometimes we haven't gotten it dubbed off yet. So for those that have to miss, this should be an easier process. Although I would like to continue to encourage people to actually come to the meeting. There's value in being here as well. So, but we're working on how that's going to end up working with the form. And that you'll end up turning into Rondi. That'll be documentation that you attended. Legally, we're supposed to have every driver attend 10 meetings, 10 safety meetings. So this will be one way that we can try to get that at 100%, which we're supposed to be.
Can we just turn it into the central office and then it?
Yes, you can turn it into central office and we'll get it to Rondi.
Okay.
Or you just turn it into where you turn your time cards in and they'll get it to Rondi.
Yeah, because our, like Garden Plains High School,
Right.
they've got,
Yeah, they would just
Place where
send
they
it
just
over to
send it over
Rondi,
to
and but she would be the collector of those.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Time cards. Appreciate your efforts on the weekly, and I can tell you, in visiting with our payroll department, trying to process payroll, the weekly is making a difference for them. So I know it's a little more work on the front end. Just shouldn't be any more work in terms of documentation. It's more work because you got to get out of your bus once a week and go in. If you're like me, the exercise will do you some good. But it is making a difference, and I think we're going to be more confident in our accuracy because of that. We're catching mistakes on the front end rather than on the back end, and so I think that's been a positive. Again, I left this on for last time, 2-hour minimum regular versus activities. But the other thing is actual time versus 2-hour minimum. So on the time card, there is an actual time, your actual drive time, and there's the 2-hour minimum. We're paying the 2-hour minimum on that, but here's the problem. If you go into overtime, the actual time comes into play.
thank you, dear.
Okay? And so we want to make sure if we're ever audited, we can't just simply say, well, 2-hour, 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 2-hour. If we're audited, we've got to have actual drive time documented. So that's why we're asking you to do both at this point in time. So I think Ronnie's put together a sample for you on what it should look like. Ronnie, you want to go over it real quick? Would you mind?
I think it's pretty explanatory. Also, I did it with holiday, sick, and activity. Your holiday time, you're going to put what your average get paid. If you usually get paid 4 hours, or 2 hours or whatever it is, you'll put that as your paid time there. It's got the sample of the drive time and the paid time that he was just talking about. Also, I put in there a sample of activity time and how that works. You can see where the time cuts off, and when you drive the route, because you're getting paid more for your route time than you are the activity time. So use that hours there, and then kick back in on the activity time after that paid time is up. So I also put down sick.
Which you're not allowed to take right now.
Nobody can be sick.
That's
no
right.
sick. If you guys can put that down, that helps me out to know what to tell them in payroll if you want to use some sick time up, or discretionary time, or if you're out, then I can call you and say, hey, you're out of sick, and you use discretionary, or I can let you know if it's going to be unpaid too. So if you can put down there, that will help me out a ton to communicate with payroll. So.
Okay. Again, the substitute calling, she's your contact for that. And I know in the past, some of our, especially our sped drivers were specialized, and they had basically the same people working their route that would sub for them. And so I think sometimes in the past we had kind of just had driver contacting and scheduling those. Rondi still needs to be involved in that process. And I would prefer if you contact her, if you request a driver, she'll certainly contact them, but here's why. And unless it's an emergency, here's why. Rondi's had times where, and correct me if I'm wrong, a sub driver is going to turn in time cards, and she was unaware that there was a sub that was here. Especially at the beginning of the year, they're like, she called, she's like, who's this person? I've never heard of them before. And so please go through Rondi for all your subs. Let her know who you want, especially van drivers, because right now we've got a couple of people that sub for vans or Suburban sped. Obviously, we don't have as many subs yet, and we'll talk about that in a minute for our buses. So please try to go through all of those with her. Rondi, could you do you have a list of the paid holidays? We don't need it right now, but next month let's go ahead and hand out that document so they'll know what days they have. They can keep it in their book, and then that way they can just copy it down. Okay. All right. Substitute driver shortage. I just wanted to give you an update. We have 2 that are taking driving tests this week. Which hopefully we'll get some relief in the amount of subs we have. Obviously, I don't know that if everybody knows, Ray is gone to full time now. Ray Folke. She's doing a morning route and an afternoon route, kind of split at St. Mark's now. So great for her. Did take us one of our subs out of our lineup. But we're still able to get all of our regular routes run, so that's good. Combining routes. All sites have set combined routes now. I know there was some concern with Garden Plain not being able to do it. I think we figured out a way. Ron, have you and John talked about how that would work? So the only thing that I would need is to be able to know when that is going to happen, so I can contact St. Joe's administrator so they can let their parents know. Okay. The other thing. And I've got a call from Kenny contacted me, and I also got a call from St. Mark's administration that they want to talk tomorrow. I assume it's over your concern on the Andal combined routes. I would like to, and we're not going to discuss it as a whole, but I'd like for us to revisit that to see if, any adjustments that could be made because basically Kenny's not overloaded numbers. He's overloaded to get dropped off into St. Mark's on time. Is that right?
Oh, I'm overloaded numbers. I've got kids sitting in the aisles.
That's not good.
I've got over 70, and you know, you do the math, and 3 people per seat if you could, but some of those kids are, were too big to get
Right.
3 per seat. So leaving here, some of the high school kids, they look on the bus and they see the grade schoolers, they walk away, and some of the older ones, juniors, sophomores, juniors, they find that right. But last time I had kids,
Okay.
probably 6, 7 kids sitting on the
So,
floor.
okay, so it's 2 issues. One is your numbers are, you're too many on the bus.
Yes.
And the second issue is, are you 10 minutes late getting to St. Mark's?
Almost, because by the time I go out of here, you know, I go back over here east of 247th, I hit Huntington, Jubilee, Rosebud, and Chelsea. And in Chelsea, I have to make the turn to come back because I need to go down 247th because I got added on a couple other grade school kids down here about 37th Street, somewhere there. And then, but most importantly, I need to go that way anyway because I turn on 29th, right as I turn on 29th, I have one, two, three high school stops. And my closest high school stop is just east of 247th and 29th. So I need to go back to 247th anyway.
Okay.
So I go over, then I come back.
All right.
Like 1, 2, 3, 4 stops. I lose probably 50 grade schoolers, 45-ish, 50.
And I know the biggest number is right over here,
Right.
East Ranch. So-
Is Ann here?
No,
No.
she's not here tonight.
Okay, what if Ann took Chelsea Court, just, cause she had, well, I know I think she heads out the other way.
Well,
Cause I head out that way, so the only other one would be Christy, and I know Christy's probably got, well, no, cause it's one or the other, it's either Ann or I.
so
What about Terrell? Terrell, is there, which one?
he is Terrell.
I know.
Kenny's terrible.
Oh,
I don't
Kenny,
come in.
you don't come here anymore.
Because I have probably 20, I've counted 20 to 25 high school kids. And then I get those grade
Right.
schoolers. So
Okay, I've got an idea.
Can you help out?
Oh, it's a pain, but I guess.
Okay, if they could at least put one, either Huntington, Jubilee, and those on, or Chelsea Court, one
Right.
or the other.
We may have a couple bus going down.
Because Kenny needs to turn around, so obviously if he could take Chelsea Court and turn around, and Paul could take those other streets, then that would work.
Yeah, can we,
Sorry,
no, that's
I'm
okay,
sorry.
but,
Brainstorming's great.
but, yeah, we need to be over there in time for college.
Okay.
So, I'll talk to, why don't you and Kenny and Christy, I'd be happy to sit down at some point and maybe talk about, some different options.
Cause I don't know how their buses are, but mine's full.
Right.
When I leave here, and I'm headed out.
When we're doing
the other way.
combined routes, I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody's bus is pretty full. You know, and I know when we do, college combined route, one of the way, I mean, Paul's extremely loaded, Carmen's taking partial load, and we're taking a Suburban. Is how we're doing that. So maybe there's some different things we can try to do. But I just want to give you guys a heads up. That's something we need to probably look at.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Mud routes. Interesting. We talked about that today with the rain.
Good thing didn't have to drive.
Yeah, it's a good thing we didn't have to drive today, or the next couple, because it's supposed to be pretty bad. But I know some of you. How many people have roads that you have serious concerns on, that you're uncomfortable driving when the weather is a rainy, muddy situation? I know Carmen does.
On 37th, and Kenny does that high school route down that road, I think.
Yes, that's one you're talking about.
So,
I take that.
if we get over 2 inches, I live in between there,
Right.
151st, 135th. There's water over the roads, and it floods down east of my house, where it dips down,
Yeah.
and you have to go, you can get through there, but you really have to go.
You're
through
151st,
No, between 151st and 135th.
so it's an east-west road.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
tells me to take 53rd, right? Is that
Yes,
about?
I was instructed by Kim, sometimes she said if it's too bad, you need to go straight north and continue to clear up to 53rd and
And
around.
then
Okay, so here's my,
That road will have standing water.
which
but
one?
It does not have running water. The same road.
The one
we're
he's talking about?
I take it too.
Yeah. So here,
I wouldn't do it.
you guys have identified your problem areas, I assume. Have you communicated with your parents that in bad weather, where it's impassable or we're concerned about putting a bus on it, here's the plan. And what I think I know, and I'm gonna use Gwen because I think you used to have one out here that way. Am I right? Where you had them meet you at the corner.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is, number one, we need to communicate with our parents, and most of the parents will be fine with it, I would guess. Say, hey, I'm concerned about bringing a busload of kids down that road. I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to end up in the ditch. Here would be a meeting place for you to bring them out, and here would be the time. So you should have that conversation one time already established, and then when it happens, you need to call them and say, hey, I don't think I can get down the road. We're going to go into our protocol for mud route, or however you want to phrase it, and just say, I don't feel comfortable getting down there. Can you meet me at the corner? Sometimes they may say yes. Sometimes they may say, you know what? It's just as easy for me to take them all the way in myself at that point. I don't care. But the other thing is, it's not just an AM, it's also a PM. So if you're not going to drop them off at their door, parents need to be notified about that as well. Every time. Say, hey, I'm not gonna be able to get down to you, AM or PM today. Or, if you want to, if it's questionable in the morning, but you think it might be better in the afternoon, call them and say, hey, I won't be able to get there for sure this morning. I'll let you know about this afternoon. Parents need to know that, so they can make plans for pickup and drop off and all that. Okay, and some parents may not be happy with that. But as always, we are in the service industry, and they are our customers. So we say it with a smile, and we tell them, I'm sorry, it's just not something I'm comfortable with. I'm not going to put a busload of kids on a road that I'm not comfortable with. And I think most parents, 98% of them are going to understand and be okay with that. In fact, I think some of them in the past said I wouldn't either. So I just wanted to put that out there. So please make sure that, and the biggest part of this is communication. If you communicate with your parents and you let them know and you explain to them your concerns, they're going to be okay with it. Okay? But if you simply call and say, I can't get down your road, sorry, you're going to have to get them there yourself, probably isn't going to come off nearly as well. Okay? So, little customer service. All right. Maps and student lists. Rondi, are you updated with all of our maps and student lists?
I'm close.
Close. All right. We need to make.
I have quite all of them yet.
Okay. Well, we're at conferences today, so it's 5 or 6 weeks into the school year. We need to get those finished up and get them in, because guess what? Second semester is going to come and your route will probably change somehow. So let's get them in now, so we can then get them updated. Stop sign violation. So I got a call 3 or 4 weeks ago from the sheriff's office, and they were doing a ride-along. They did a ride-along a couple years ago, and so they asked us to. They were going to have 3 buses, and I'd identified 3 different buses, and they ended up only riding 2. One of them was Terrell. Who was the other one?
Carrie was the other one.
Who?
Very bad.
Oh yeah, Carrie Pat. Yeah, Carrie's bus. I think Carrie didn't have anybody run it, but had a couple that were close. Terrell actually had one run his bus, stop sign, coming towards you, right? Coming towards you, blew right through it. They got on the radio. They had them stopped within less than a minute, probably, or 2. And it's a $425 ticket for that individual.
And it's a moving violation.
And it's a moving violation, so it goes on their license.
Plus court costs, probably.
I think 425 includes court costs. That's everything. That's the grand package. I cannot imagine going home and telling my wife I just got a $425 ticket. That would be a hard pill to swallow. And it's not the ticket that we're trying to get the point across. It's an unsafe situation.
Oh, it's terrible.
How many people have had somebody run it this year?
Not yet.
You've had one? You 3, 4? So I would guess that when we do it again, they're going to do an afternoon next time. So we'll try to place them on some of you guys that have had those problems. If you have,
Don't do it anymore.
they won't do it anymore. That's right.
They're
So-
looking at about 2 weeks doing it again.
Yeah.
And then he possibly said he may be back on mine in a month, but guess what happened yesterday morning?
They run?
Another one.
Really?
Wow.
Near the same area.
Now I will tell you this.
Wow.
I
That's terrible.
I
You can't
put
be
it out
in
on
that big
Twitter.
of a
I don't know if
road,
any of
even
you
a kid.
follow my tweets. but I put it out on Twitter, and so I was talking to somebody, and they said we knew about the program because they'd been doing it in all the area districts, and they had done it like Mays, I think. Mays or
Goddard had 4.
Monday they did Derby, they had none. Mays they had some. Goddard they did Wednesday, and Goddard, one stop, they had 3 go around.
and they got all 3. And I heard somebody told me that they got somebody on a back-to-back violation day, or two days in a row.
Idiot. Well, he needed it.
Darn near $1,000.
He needed it.
So anyway, so I also want to bring this to your attention. This is a document that I got at a superintendent's workshop about a month ago, but 3 weeks ago. And I wanted to share with it because it's a 30-day bus passing survey. So you know how every year they do a 1 week or a 1 day survey, and everybody's supposed to turn in their turn in if they had somebody pass it, and then we all send it up to the state. Well, they decided to do a 30-day with selected districts across the state. So they picked 57 districts, I believe. Let me make sure. 57 districts, and they from all over the state. They did. You can see the map. The colored parts are the counties that were involved. Okay, districts in those counties. It's a nice little report. I'm just going to go to the final data. Interesting information. So in 30 days, in 57 districts, there were 9,967 violations.
Jiminy Christmas.
I think this report is one of the reasons that they're hitting our buses right now, because this opened a lot of people's eyes, especially in law enforcement, and I think that they're really going to start cracking down on this.
They need to.
And so types of violations. Most of the violations were in the city, 9,491 of them. 322 were highway. Okay. Various times of the day. Morning was 4,076. I thought that would be the highest, but afternoon was actually higher at 5,213. Noon was 678, only because there's fewer buses on the road at noon, probably. Violation direction. Coming towards the bus was more than passing the bus from behind. 7,249 to 2,718. Sides of the road, a right side or a left side violation. Obviously, left would be the most common. There was 9,745, but there are actually 222 violations on the right side of the road. Right side of the bus.
Ay, ay, ay.
You know, and it's one of those deals where it's just almost,
Unbelievable.
it's indescribable.
Yeah.
I mean, how does this happen? But if you think about it, and how many times that your buses have been passed in a school year, or even in 30 days, I bet in 30 days in our group, we probably have what, 8?
At least.
10?
The thing out of Tracy is, these are all parents that probably have kids, right? Going to school, some of them.
Some of 'em.
Half of them or whatever.
Right.
And if they think in this manner, my kid just got run over
Yeah.
before, you know.
Yep. So that being said, this month is bus safety awareness, and I haven't seen the actual date, but I believe it's probably bus driver appreciation. And so at the next meeting in November, we'll provide some pizza from the district as appreciation, token of appreciation, and we'll put some information out to parents about Bus Safety Week, as well as advertise the Appreciation Day. So those are things that are on our list to do in the next week and a half.
Tracy?
Yes.
Officer Romero told me too, after we sat in there after Friday morning was done. He said, fill these forms out because it will document where the problem areas are, and that way, they could, if there's an officer available, he might sit back and just observe, might help a little bit, but he says every one of these we send in, they document it. So he says whether you get a tag number or not, try to get a vehicle description. And there's times you can't get a tag number.
They're going too fast.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the other thing. You're
You
focusing
find
on where
time.
your kids are.
Yeah, that's right,
You're
exactly.
focusing on
That's the
your
thing.
kids.
So he says, even if you don't get a tag, fill it out the best you can, get the address where it happened, that way, when he gets it, it documents the area.
Do all of you have the forms still, or do we need to get? You have some forms. So Rodney has some forms if you need to grab some.
Yeah, I've got some.
Okay. All right. So Rondi, do you have any additional updates that you wanted to share before we move to our video?
I do have, Paul, defensive driving, I have that yours is expired. There is classes coming up, I got the schedule if somebody needs them.
Didn't you just take it though?
Check here.
This was that first aid or defensive driving
Maybe
this
we
summer?
just don't have
Oh, I
the,
did, I think it was first aid.
Okay. Well, let's check your documentation. See if you have a current card. Otherwise, we'll need to get you in a class.
did you need stop sign violation?
All right. We're gonna go into video. This is a good, I tried to pick one that maybe we hadn't seen before. This actually has some really good information, especially loading, unloading, safety zones, some of those types of things. One of the key parts that I think that I appreciate with this is, and that is making sure you're talking to your kids about when they can load and that they need your okay, your direction to load, especially when they're crossing traffic, because kids that want to, as soon as the bus is starting to pull up and get ready to stop, they're wanting to sprint across the road. So you've got to make sure you've had those conversations with them and that you're not letting them come across until you've checked and you wave them over. You also don't want kids crowding up as you're pulling up at a bus stop. So those were a couple things that I had noticed. Well, I've seen this today, so I'm gonna go get, what did you need?
Insurance card.
card.
You wanna kill those lights there on the,
Yep.
when you go? I'm not getting a very good.
Every morning and afternoon, you climb on your bus and you take on the
There
awesome
you go. That's
responsibility
good.
of transporting students safely to and from school. And you perform this vital service under some pretty significant pressures. Careless motorists that ignore your red warning lights, inclement weather, schedule demands,
I expect her home no later than 3:35, okay?
distracting student behavior, and even personal difficulties all vie for your attention. Sadly, even a second or two of inattention can have devastating results. Despite drivers' skill and their commitment, approximately 21 students are killed every year by school buses, and another 800 are injured.
Oh, please, no!
The most dangerous time for students is during loading and unloading, a process that will be repeated many times during the day and can become kind of routine and hypnotic. Another cause for great concern are the number of dragging incidents that continue to take lives. Despite recalls and the adaptation of handrails, clothing, book bags, and other articles continue to get caught either in the handrail or the folding steps or in the door, with terrible consequences.
Well, all those chains that they
This
put on
video
those
is
little
intended to
things that
address
they
these
put on
issues
those
and help you to
bags.
stay sharp, so the students are going to be safe, and you'll never have the horrible experience of injuring or killing a child. The first step to safely loading your bus is one that you need to take even before you start your run. It's vital that you be familiar with the safe location of every bus stop on your route. This is particularly true if you're a sub-driver. If you're unfamiliar with the stops, you may become dependent on children to provide the information, and the information could be inaccurate.
You're supposed to stop right over there.
Once you're on the road and approaching a stop, try to reduce the onboard distractions such as music, loud conversation, or discipline problems. This may mean that you have to pull over to the side of the road and solve the problem before you reach the stop.
Children, please be quiet so that we can pick up your friends.
300 to 500 feet before the stop, you'll activate your end of traffic warning lights. The distance will vary depending on your speed and the need to give motorists ample warning of your intentions. As you approach the stop, check for anything out of the ordinary. A car parked on your right just before the stop may be blocking your vision. A garbage can rolled to the curb or a pile of plowed snow could limit your vision or provide an inviting hiding place for a child. Make sure that the children are waiting in a safe area, a reasonable distance from the bus. Most agree that a safe distance would be in excess of 10 feet from the bus. If the children aren't clear of the danger zone, or if you notice dangerous behavior like running or pushing and shoving, stop before the bus stop, honk the horn to get attention, and signal to the children to move back. If you have an external PA system, give clear and simple direction. As you move into the loading zone, be sure that you're moving slowly enough that you can quickly stop if the need arises. While state laws and procedures vary as to where you should stop the bus, it's important to stop in such a way that the bus will provide some protection from vehicle traffic while children are loading and unloading. If you leave too much room on the right of your bus, you create the possibility that an inattentive motorist might try to pass on the right, creating a very dangerous situation. If you're pulling into a curb location, leave enough room that the children have to step down onto the road surface and then up into the bus. You're trying to keep the children from the dangerous practice of trying to jump from the curb to the bus. Once you've stopped, place the bus in neutral, engage the parking brake, and activate the red school bus traffic warning lights. Once again, procedure regarding engaging the parking brake may vary, but you can see the need to be sure that the bus doesn't move during the loading and unloading process. Over half the fatalities of the last 10 years have involved students from 5 to 7 years old. And of course, these are the children that are less familiar with safe practices. It's normal for young and impulsive children to try and approach the bus when they see the door open. It's a dangerous habit, and you should insist that they wait for your hand signal before moving toward the bus. If it won't cause serious delays, it's not unreasonable to have those children who jumped the gun return to the safe area and try the process again.
Let's try that again. Now this time wait for my signal.
If there are enough children at the stop that you could lose track of one, take the time to count them before you give them the signal to approach the bus. Make sure that your signal to approach is clear and perform it the same way every time. Count the children as they enter the bus. If you lose count or the count doesn't tally, immediately check your mirrors in an effort to find the missing child. Remember that there are blind spots when you're using your mirrors, so if you haven't been able to clear the count, secure the bus, step off and look under and around the bus until you're satisfied that no one's in danger. Once the children are seated and you're preparing to leave, take the time to scan the area for stragglers or children running for the bus. Also, make sure that you know the location of people who are seeing the children off. If you have a straggler, a runner, or someone who's approaching the side of the bus to make contact with a rider, be sure to give a clear warning about the seriousness of the behavior.
Caitlin, here's your book. Excuse me, ma'am, but you're kind of close in the danger zone of the bus. We've been teaching the kids about the danger zone, and it's pretty dangerous near the side of the bus here. But I'd be glad to give that to your daughter for you.
Okay, great, thank you.
She'll give you your book. Bye-bye.
As you cancel your red traffic warning lights and check your mirrors to see if it's safe to proceed, listen carefully for any warnings from the children. They may be able to see what you can't.
Wait, Conda's coming.
If you hear a warning, stop immediately, even if the children have a history of playing wolf-wolf. Safety is a lot more important than the possibility that you're going to be embarrassed by falling for one of their games. If students insist on playing those kind of games, it's important that you deal with it as you would any other kind of discipline problem, anything that interfered with safety, order, or the rights of others. As you leave the stop, remember that your most powerful tool is your vision. Continually scan your surroundings as you move into the traffic. First, check your right side mirror for anyone or anything too close to the bus. Remember to take the backswing of the bus into consideration. Check the inside rear view mirror for any movement in or around the bus. Next, check your crossover mirror. Now it's time to move to your left side mirror and check the traffic. As you prepare to move into traffic, make one last check of the right side mirror to make sure it's safe to proceed. If it's necessary to use a left turn signal, wait until you see an opportunity to proceed, activate the signal, and when it's safe, proceed with caution. Did you know that 73% of loading and unloading fatalities occur during the unloading process in the afternoon? Many drivers have frightening stories of narrowly averted disaster, and some have experienced firsthand the pain of an unloading accident.
I counted the children as they left the bus, but I couldn't find them all. So I secured the bus and went looking for the missing child. I found her sitting on the curb in front of the rear wheels. Dominique, what are you doing?
I'm tying my shoe. If I come home with my shoes untied, my mom will spank me.
As you approach the bus stop, scan the area for anything out of the ordinary, anything that could distract the children from the safe unloading practices that you've been teaching. Watch for unsecured dogs or other animals that could threaten the children or cause them to be distracted or behave erratically. Watch for idling vehicles that are blocking your safe access to the stop or preparing to move. Look for physical hazards that could cause the children to deviate from their normal walking path, things like parked cars, puddles, snowbanks, or debris. Insist that students remain seated until the buses stop. Once you've stopped the bus, activated the red traffic warning lights, and have checked to make sure that the traffic around the bus has come to a complete stop, the children may disembark. Remember that when children are on their way home, they can be excitable and forget some safety practices.
Danielle, please sit down until the bus comes to a complete stop.
As the children are passing you to leave the bus and you notice rowdy or rambunctious behavior, speak to the children. Don't allow the children to crowd one another, as there's a good chance that somebody could be bumped down the stairs or drop personal items. There will be some stops where it'll be a good idea to encourage children to look both ways before they step down from the bus. Bicycles, motorcycles, and even cars have been known to pass on the right. As the children leave the bus, it's time to exercise what we'll call the 4 C's. The first C, count the children as they leave the bus. Be sure to include the escorts that are waiting at the stop in your count. Insist that the children move immediately to a safe distance from the bus. The second C, clear the count as the children reach a safe distance from the bus. If you lose count or the count won't clear, get off of the bus and check under and around it. The third C, check your mirrors to see if there's anybody in the danger zone. Be alert for the child who makes it to the safe zone and returns to the bus. And the fourth C, close the door and scan the area around the bus to see whether or not it's safe to proceed. Yes, it'll take some time to go through this process, but the schedule's not as important as the life of a child. Now here are a few more helpful hints as you unload your students. Don't unload the child at an unfamiliar stop where they could become confused and try to return to the bus or take other dangerous action. Don't unload the child if there's an unfamiliar person greeting the child or loitering in the area.
My mom told me that I'm supposed to go to my friends after school and not daycare.
If a child claims that they're to be let off at a location other than their regular stop, but you have no documentation to support their claim, contact dispatch for information and keep the child on the bus.
Amy, please stay up here with me and we'll call on the radio and see what we should do.
It's understandable for a child to pick up something that they've dropped. It's also very dangerous. If you notice a child trying to retrieve something that they've dropped, be sure to instruct them in what they're to do.
Crystal, if you ever drop anything near the bus, please don't lean over and pick it up. Let me help you.
Watch out for those children in rural settings who want to stop at the mailbox on the way home. The trip to the mailbox may take them across the street or along beside your bus. If there's not enough room on the side of the road for the students to get far enough from the side of the bus, have them walk ahead of the bus to a location that's safe. Do not move the bus until they reach the safe area. If there's a right turn immediately beyond the bus stop, exercise extreme caution. You know that the rear wheels will follow a path that's closer to the curb. If a child's walking along the side of the road and decides to chase the bus, they're vulnerable to the rear wheels of the bus. Make every stop your highest priority. Don't let fatigue, frustration, or distraction break the safety habit. One of the most dangerous activities of a child's day is crossing the street to get to the school bus or to get home. We mentioned that half of the fatalities that occur on or around a bus are children between the ages of 5 and 7. Obviously, this group's going to need our total attention if they're expected to cross the street. Some of the reasons for the higher risk to small children are obvious. They're smaller and they can slip into the bus driver or the motorist's blind spot more easily. They're more spontaneous and impulsive, and once they've seen the goal, whether it's the waiting bus or the parent, they can easily be overcome by the urge to run. But there's more. We've led children to believe that if they follow the rules, they'll be safe. They trust us, and they trust the process that we've created. When you signal a child that it's safe to cross the street, they believe you, in the same way that they trust a parent who takes them by the hand to lead them across the street. It's true that we've taught children to look both ways when they cross the street, and many of them will do it. But what do they see? The child's perception of what's happening may be dramatically different than yours. There's strong evidence that small children literally don't see what you see. For example, their peripheral vision is somewhat limited, and they may not even see the danger. And even if they did see an approaching vehicle, they may not be able to accurately judge its speed and distance. Add to the perception problem the fact that they don't understand the physics of braking distance and their confidence that the car will be able to stop, and the formula can be deadly. When it comes right down to it, the child's best protection is your perception and your judgment. As you approach the crossing location, take a good look to see if there's anything that could threaten a safe crossing. Once you've stopped your bus, activated the red traffic warning lights, and have determined that the traffic is stopped, it's time to assist the children in crossing the street. There will be times when children are waiting on both sides of the street or unloading in both directions. You can see the problem that is posed by having to count and supervise both groups simultaneously. In the moment that you split your attention, you could lose track of a child and they could slip into a blind spot. The only practical solution is to deal with one group at a time. When you're loading, that means that you'll wait until the children on the near side of the road are boarded before you give the signal for the crossing students to advance. In this way, the crossing students will have your undivided attention. The unloading process is more difficult, as students tend to leave the bus in the order of their seating arrangement. Once again, you should count the children as they leave the bus and insist that the crossing students go directly to the starting location for crossing, that point beyond the danger zone. Don't give the signal to cross until you're confident that the non-crossing students are safely away from the bus and you're able to give the crossing students your complete attention. If the crossing students start to move before you're confident that it's safe and you've given the hand signal to do so, honk the horn to get their attention and raise your hand in the halt position so they'll stop and go back to the safe area. Even though children moving before it's safe to do so could clearly constitute an emergency, use the horn with caution. Only sound the horn long enough to get the children's attention. This is particularly true if the children are on your side of the street. You can imagine how frightening a loud horn could be and the effect it could have on a child. Two common reactions of small children would either be to run or to freeze, and either reaction would be dangerous. Once you're confident that the traffic presents no threat, attempt to make eye contact with the children and use an arm signal to indicate that the children are to cross the road. There's some conflict over the safest way to direct the students. Most contention is a result of fears that the driver's direction will be misunderstood by motorists. It's our suggestion that you take a page from the book of law enforcement officers and use the following technique. First, make eye contact with the children. Then, using an open right hand, point directly at the children and bending your arm at the elbow, slowly move it in the direction that you intend them to travel. Allow your eyes to follow the path of your hand so that you'll be able to make one more check of the oncoming traffic. Use your right arm as it's easier to see from both sides of the road. It may be necessary to repeat the motion if the children aren't paying attention. Between repetitions, drop your hand so that it's out of the line of sight and there can be no confusion about what you want. Don't put your arm out of the window to signal the students to come ahead. The gesture could be easily interpreted by the motorists as a signal for them to proceed. Don't get in the habit of waving to students, as they could interpret it as a signal to cross the street. Similarly, motorists may see and misunderstand the gesture. Safety is a team effort. If you have older, more seasoned riders on your bus, it's reasonable to ask for their help in getting the younger children across the street safely. If you're going to accept the assistance of parents or older students, insist that they follow safe practices. We know that young children will often imitate older students. For this reason, the assumption that the older students or parents don't need to be held to as high a standard is not only inaccurate, but dangerous. No matter whether it's loading, unloading, or crossing the street, always insist on safe practices of yourself and others. The bus driver thought that he was fooling around, and that judgment proved to be fatal. In the aftermath of the situation, people were asking a lot of questions, and through the horror and the grief and the frustration and the litigation, they were asking what went wrong. As you examine situations like that one, it's easy to point the blame at the handrail or the power door, but when it comes right down to it, there's a a painful awareness that the drivers involved in those kind of situations weren't necessarily using safe unloading practices. It's true that the controls for the power doors may be placed in such a way that the driver's attention is diverted from the students as they activate the door. It's also true that despite recall efforts, there are still many buses on the road that have handrails with a design flaw that can result in children's clothing being snagged. But the most dangerous situations are still the result of drivers' inattention. Painful but true. So what can we do? First, we need to recognize the danger. One of the most deadly combinations would appear to be loose-fitting clothing or drawstrings and the school bus handrail. You need to be alert to the hazard. You've noticed that modern styles of dress are often oversized and baggy and may be more likely to get snagged in the handrail or caught in the door. If a student's wearing clothing that will increase the risk, it's important to do two things. First, warn the student of the danger and encourage caution.
Charlie, please hang on to the drawstring until you're off the bus. It could get caught on the handrail or the door.
And second, watch the students even more carefully until they're clear of the bus. School children will always have to carry things to and from school, and as they leave the bus, it's possible for their book bags or other items they've carried to get caught in the door that was closed before the child was safely away from the bus. If you notice that the student's carrying a bag by only one strap, or there are keys or other objects hanging from their bags, warn them of the danger and encourage them to be careful. We need to do everything we can to avoid dragging incidents. One thing we can all do is to make sure that the bus handrail isn't a trap. It's a good idea to ask your transportation supervisor if your bus has been recalled or refitted to correct a defective handrail. When you do your pre-trip inspection, take the time to determine whether or not the handrail has been altered or fitted with an adapter and is in good condition. Check to make sure that it hasn't come loose. We encourage you to do all that you can to maintain your edge. Get enough sleep. Maintain good eating habits. Exercise if you're able, and don't ignore health or personal problems that could distract you as you drive your bus. There are children who are counting on you. It's a matter of survival.
I cannot imagine a kid hanging by the door
Can't either.
and you wouldn't stop.
Right.
And I missed part of that. Did they say that was an actual incident?
So it was a
Sounded like
reenactment.
it. Sound like
Like it
the kid
actually
was
happened
killed.
with
Yeah.
fatality.
Yeah.
That's
It was a
just, that's
reenactment.
just
Yeah.
awful to think about that. But anyway, okay. Any other questions? Yes, John.
Some of the students can watch this program.
Yes, I know. And a lot of this comes down to, and we'll continue to see some of the different videos on management. No different than a teacher in a classroom. Kids will meet your expectations. I truly believe that. If you expect them to sit on the bus and you reinforce that and you continue that, I think that they'll stay with it. If they don't, we actually have an incident with some high school boys right now we're working through. We've gotten administration involved. If it doesn't change, we've already removed them from the bus for a period of time. Next time it's gonna be the rest of the semester, third time it's the rest of the year. And so, but the point is this, we have a job to do as well in managing those behaviors. And if you set your expectations and you stick to them every day, most kids are gonna follow that. Most kids. And the ones that won't, we'll be able to deal with it. Okay? All right, guys, have a good one. Stay dry, stay safe.